I'm now going to just introduce you to a few different people who are going to be available again in the lunch break, but they're just going to talk to you just a little bit so you can find out about some other ways that we can help ourselves and our children. And we're going to start off with Botanica Health and Sports, which is located in Rusthall. And I'm going to introduce Sophie Lamb and Abir, and she's going to pronounce her own surname because I can't. Sophie is a medical herbalist and Abir is a nutritionist. And they're going to talk to you about a fantastic course that I've been on.
We've got 10 minutes today to tell you about a course that we run called Nutritious Delicious. And really what that is a course that aims to bridge the gap between food and medicine. And it came about because during our practice, we noticed that so many people that come to us have digestive issues, and that those digestive issues lead to poor health and lack of vitality. What courses do is they supplement the consultations that we give people, and we teach them in a much fuller way how to really improve their health through their diet. The courses are based on traditional principles that are really about nourishing the body. We're not into faddy diets. It really goes back to traditional wisdom that's backed up by leading science. And what we notice through our dietary recommendations is that there's an improvement in gut health. Our dietary regimes are supportive of the liver, they reduce inflammation, and they're very nourishing and giving to the body. And we'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute.
And just to put this into context for you, we don't view the brain as being separate from the rest of the body. We view the brain as being very much influenced by what goes on in the rest of the body. And indeed, it's a very, very modern thing to view the brain and the nervous system as separate. If you look at the forefather or the father of modern psychiatry, Philippe Pinel, he concluded after years of working with many, many patients that all diseases of the brain also begin in the gut. And if you look at the most famous doctor of all time, Hippocrates, in 400 BC he wrote, "Let thy medicine be thy food, and thy food be thy medicine." But he also wrote that all disease begins in the gut. And how wonderful to make that connection, because if you look back, we're very much into modern science, but we also like to glean from traditional wisdom, a traditional wise approach to health. And if you look at the old-fashioned name for depression, does anybody know what that was? Well, its name was melancholy. And the Latin for melancholy actually breaks down to black bile. And so depression of the head, obviously, was associated with liver disease. And what we find in our practice is if you help the liver to detoxify from an excess of endotoxins which leaches and overloads into the bloodstream and affects the nervous system, you'll thereby help that person's depression, and that can reach many different types of depressions. If you help the gut, if you help to improve, as Abir said, and reduce inflammation and the integrity of the gut, you'll also help there. Just as a little anecdotal bit of story, just to put what we do into context. In our family, we have a lady who works with people with various mental disabilities or handicaps, and by being a nurse type or a carer, they have to log those patients' bowel movements. And if that patient hasn't had a bowel movement for 3 days, they'll expect an epileptic fit. This is purely just to put it into context. Nutritious Delicious is far more wide-reaching than just the brain. But if you I don't know if anybody here is familiar with the book by Natasha Campbell McBride. She has coined the phrase gut and psychology syndrome. This neurologist, whose own child had autism, has found that by improving the integrity and the health of the gut, you'll improve a great myriad of problems which are associated with the nervous system only. We really, really recommend this book. It's really vital. It's got lots and lots of scientific references, and basically our courses integrate much of what she talks about, and Abir will tell you a little bit more about some of those principles.
So we have 4 parts to our course, and during each part we cover a very important health principle, but we also cover something quite interesting called traditional treasures, and it really comes down to food preparation and some traditional ways of eating that help to prepare the gut, because if you think about it today,
we expect our digestive systems to do a lot. A lot of us eat processed food. We don't give our gut any sort of assistance in breaking the food down. So we eat this great big meal and we expect the gut to do a lot. In traditional treasures, they prepared their foods in certain ways that help the gut digest it. So, for example, fermenting foods. They still do it in many parts of the world. Kimchi in Korea, yogurt making, a number of different foods that give the gut live enzymes and probiotics to help that food become digested. And in children and indeed adults with sensitive guts, this is vital, actually. It becomes vital and helps them to do that digesting. Another thing we cover is gelatin, the use of gelatin-rich broths, which traditionally doctors would give to children and adults who were sick, really, to bring them back to good health, because those gelatin-rich stocks contain numerous nutrients in there that have actually been shown to heal the gut. And Dr. Pottinger did quite a lot of research on that to show it. And we've noticed in our practice quite huge improvements with the use of these very traditional foods.
One of the traditional principles which we cover is the incorporation of spices, which in the UK we don't actually use very much, but in our practice we find helps enormously with children with various problems. Those spices, as Abir said, are involved in anti-inflammatory effects in the body, and even if you look at Alzheimer's disease now, that's also known to be largely as a result of inflammation. If you take a very, very simple, very humble spice called rosemary, which many of you have probably got growing in your gardens, rosemary has a fantastic effect on the nervous system. If you have a fidgety child with poor concentration or agitation issues, rosemary is extremely beneficial, and there's a lot of research to back up how and why that is as well. Just in our practice, we have a boy who just at the end of last year came because he was getting very, very poor marks at school. He was actually very suicidal because he was unable to concentrate. This poor boy, who was a beautiful boy, he was very pale, so he obviously wasn't very well, but he was suicidal because he was not able to keep up with his peers. After 1 or 2 months into the treatment, he was significantly better, and 3 or 4 months later, his marks by his teachers are greatly improved, and they're absolutely delighted to see this boy is now achieving amazing results and having no issues whatsoever in keeping up with his peers. And just to see from the outside, his complexion is no longer that awful paleness, that pallor, because he's now digesting his food. And many other processes are working so much better in his body. Just to tie it back and remind you again that the brain is not disconnected from the rest of your body.
And actually, just to follow up on that point, we've got quite a lot of nice sort of anecdotes from people who've come on our courses about the effects, or the positive effects, the dietary changes have had on the whole family. So, I mean, our motto is simple, affordable, powerful, because we want it to be simple, because, you know, a lot of you will work or have a number of children, or life is challenging, and so we want the food preparation to be simple and affordable, and it is powerful because it's not really, they are simple steps, but they make a big difference. And one woman who came on our course was feeding her children breakfast cereals every morning, which we go into grains quite in depth really on our course, and she'd moved it, she changed it to eggs in the morning with you know, good fats and that kind of thing. And she said that the change in behavior in her children, and they didn't have any specific problems, any health problems, but she said they didn't have the meltdown before school. She said they said their tummies felt better, and we hear this more, you know, more and more with people going along these traditional ways of eating, that there's huge marked improvements in their children's behavior and the whole family's well-being, really.